Metaphor strategy can be used in many, many different circumstances. And for the sake of practice, we have kind of steps we're going to do today. But let's look at what a metaphor is. And to do that, let's do it experientially to start. So, and by the way, it's 11:11, one of my favorite numbers. So, what a good time to start working with metaphor. So, I know it's 11:11 our, California time, but um, so let's just think boundary. What's a metaphor that comes to you for the word boundary? Anything at all, a word picture, a sense in the body. So here I'm giving you some examples of how things can be metaphorical. A boundary can have a felt experience in the body. A boundary can have a picture. We've got lots of pictures written: fence, wall, corral. A boundary might be felt like a sound. What would it be like to make the sound of a boundary? For me, what came through immediately is "ho." I don't know why, but that like, what do you and what do you say to a horse to have them stop? I don't know. Boom, Wordle. Palms up. Anxiety in the body when you think of boundary. So you see how many things came out. Whoa is the sound for a horse to stop. Yeah. Um, so let's think of another word. Uh, open, openness. What metaphors come to you for openness? And just notice if the first thing you sense is a picture or a feeling in the body or a sound or something else. Oh, openness, sky, water flowing, flow. There's so many words here: ocean, field, big horizons, air, openness. And then just check in. What's openness like in the body? Openness as a experience in the body. And you might get an image in the body. So like for example, I feel hands opening my chest. The hands, I just imagine them, but then I do the motion too. And so we can also move as a metaphor. What is it like to take a pose of openness? Just notice what comes naturally, kind of quickly. Openness as a pose. Um, and if you were to imagine a song that was a metaphor for openness, what might that song be if you're more musical? Beautiful. Joy wrote "Let It Be." Yeah, so you see how we're just with those two words, we're getting our creative mind really engaged metaphorically. We can do this with a client. What I just did with you guys, we can do with a client. Get them into the language of metaphors. And often when a client has a goal or something they're working on in their life, they do immediately notice what's stopping them. So imagine a goal you have right now in your life, something you're working on. If you've been talking over and over again with your colleagues about your professional goals, switch to another part of your life. A goal you have around another part of your life. Just so you're not working the same thing in every session, because sometimes that can be a little overdone in a sense for us if we keep going to the same topic. So, whatever your goal is, just be for a moment with that goal metaphorically. And what comes to you? Like, let's say someone's goal is to, I don't know, have a closer relationship with someone. What would be a metaphor for that closer relationship? And then just notice whatever your goal is, whatever you metaphorically felt about your goal. Anything get in your way that gets in your way of actualizing that, taking steps towards that, empowering that goal. And that's your obstacle or your resistance. So let's say someone said, well, my goal is to make more money and to have a better relationship with money. And then they imagined um, money just pouring out of them in a good, healthy way. Like they were so abundant, money was just flowing out of them. Um, And then I asked, and so what gets in your way of taking the steps to having this relationship with money? And they may say it makes me anxious. And so what is that like as a picture or an experience in the body? So we're reframing it into something we can work with. We're reframing that obstacle. So with the money one, maybe someone says, I've done this session many times with money. I've had money show up as a monster. I've had money show up as a crocodile. I've had money show up as a kind of like a tone of voice and a rhythm, and then we moved it into a song. Um, so a chain. Someone said a chain. Yeah. So I don't know if you're referring to the money. But oh, I like that. A trickle of water, a burden. Yeah. And and we might also have, like, money is an interesting one. We might have some metaphors already around money. Mine is a bouncing ball. And I'm never sure if this is a healthy metaphor or an unhealthy metaphor. I'll let you guys decide. But I always think of money as round. And this comes from what a friend told me a long time ago that her father told her, who was an accountant. And it just made so much sense to me. And it gave me this weird sense of um, ease in the unknown of it. And what my friend said was, my dad always says, money is round. It's either rolling towards you or it's rolling away from you. And you can see that as kind of a negative statement, but I took it as very empowering just to think money was in flow. And yeah, sometimes it would flow towards me and sometimes it would flow away from me. And I've had that kind of life where money has been sort of drastically either flowing in my direction or drastically flowing away from me. And so for me, that metaphor made a lot of sense. And I've learned to allow it to give me a lot of peace. But I could also see how it would be a negative belief for someone else. As long as it's not a bouncing check, right? So let's look at how easy or difficult is it for you, for yourself, to imagine things metaphorically as a reframe? I'd like to know, more importantly, if it's really hard for someone. Um, but I'd like to know. And sometimes people, you'll have clients that it is more difficult for them, and they'll tell you they're not good at using their imagination like that or thinking metaphorically. And it's not, we like to trust our clients always, but what I find is that's not necessarily true. It's just that they haven't accepted their metaphors yet. So they're using metaphorical language, like feeling stuck or feeling blocked or feeling spacey, and they don't notice that's a metaphor. And Heidi said, not easy. Great, Heidi. I want to hear, can we unmute you, Heidi? Would you mind talking to me? Because I feel like actually when it's difficult for someone, that's the best teaching for us as coaches.
And
Um,
Teresa as well. It's hard for me to come up with metaphors.
great, great. Another one that's nice to look at is, how does health feel in the body? What are signs of health in images or physical experiences? How does health show up metaphorically? See, Melanie shared vibrancy, sunshine, glowing. And what I find is as soon as we start talking this way, it gets easier to access metaphors. Are you guys the ones that feel that this is difficult? Does that connect to you?
And
And Julia, if English is not your mother tongue and it's harder in English, feel free to say it to yourself in your own language and then look up, online the translator what that would be. But do it in your own language.
Magali, Heidi
Yes.
is unmuted, so she's
Great, great. Hi, Heidi.
Hi, Magali.
So tell me what showed up when you thought of a goal you want to work towards.
Well, I think the money is a good one. It's kind of always present.
Okay. And what would you like your relationship to money to be? How would it be? What qualities would that relationship have?
Open, um,
Open. Yeah.
non-resistant.
Great. So open and non-resistant. Let's just be with those words, open and non-resistant. And what is your felt experience of open, non-resistant? Don't worry about money. Just think about open and non-resistant and tell me about that.
Open is easy. Open is doesn't require any effort. Um, it's like open is more of a natural state. Um,
Perfect. That's so perfect. Natural state, easy. So when you think of natural state and easy, is there anything kind of in the natural world that reminds you of that state of being that's easy and not
um,
resistant?
well, yeah, in the natural world, I see you know trees and grasses and um, plants that are appear to not be efforting to just just be there.
Yeah, and as they're just being there, are they growing? Are they changing? What's happening to them?
Yeah, they're present and growing and changing.
Yeah. So now just imagining the word money. What's it like to kind of give money, the idea of money, just the thought? You don't have to have a picture, just the thought money. What's it like to give it some of this just beingness, this growth, these qualities of nature? What happens to that money? Does anything show up to you? Like, does it?
Well, when you first mentioned it, um, I kind of felt some constricting within me, so that the openness became smaller. And,
And that was with the word money?
yeah, that was.
Okay, great. So that was a metaphor you felt in the body.
Mhm.
So let's just go with that constriction feeling and be with that, knowing you're a mature adult who can be with that sense of constriction right now in a healthy way, just noticing it. And what would you like to add in just to constriction? What does constriction need to open more?
Um, so less firm, more softer.
Great. So add some softness to constriction. What's soft? What's the softest thing you know that you can touch in the real world? Let's think of
Hmm.
the softest thing.
Yeah. So the my pets, their fur is soft and
Yes.
fluffy.
Yeah, yeah. So you've been talking metaphorically a lot here, and you seem to be really kinesthetic in your awareness of metaphors. You can feel them. So sometimes it feels more difficult to make an image out of it, but you don't need to. You can go with your kinesthetic awareness. So now just imagining money to be something soft. What comes to you as you feel money as something soft?
Mhm. So some dollar bills, softer.
Hmm,
Mm,
that's great. Like really worn out dollar bills that have like gone
right.
through the wash a lot and like they're yeah.
They're
Isn't it
softer.
incredible
They're
how money can
not
get worn
rigid.
out?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we can work at all different levels with metaphors, and this was just a kind of a little demo, but I would suggest, like, if we were doing this like a full session, to keep going with more and more metaphors of just softness and real
Mhm.
things. Like, have you ever touched a really soft leaf? You know those leaves that feel kind of like velvet?
Mm.
And then just imagining that softness as it interacts somehow with currency. You can give other names to money with exchanges. And
Mhm.
so you're making these connections again between an empowering kind of healing metaphor and the thing that felt hard or restricted or closed.
Mm.
And this is a way to work metaphorically. Now, someone else might like have money as an actual object they imagine. Like, I could also work with you with it and say, um, just tell me, if you were to imagine money were a building, what kind of building would it be?
Um, so what came to mind was very hard and cement and square angles.
You're great at metaphors. There you go.
Secure, secure. Well, it's so funny because you made it easy for me with your guidance, and so thank you for that, and thank you for allowing me to share because I didn't feel like I would be comfortable sharing, and you made that comfortable as well.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. And so just to give us an example to everyone, the metaphor, so we kind of warmed up talking about metaphors, and then we went to making an object, this building.
Mm,
Then we could go further. What do you want to add to that hard? We'll stop talking about money. So we let go of the topic of money, and
mm,
now we just talk about the building, that hard cement like building. Would it make it softer or like a building you want to enter if you added some nice light to it, windows or furniture? Or what would you do to make it more inviting? And so then we're working with with the building
mm,
as the metaphorical representation for the relationship with money. We stop talking about money and we talk about the building. Then at the end of the session, we go back to the conversation about money and we say, so you just worked metaphorically with money as a building. And I'm wondering now, kind of, what would be something you would like to do that empowers your relationship to money? And the person will have more creative resources to come up with what some action is they want to do around money. They might say, I want to pay my bills now, actually, without crying. Or I want to, I don't know, I want to buy myself something nice without feeling guilty. And they've created an action for themselves that is very empowering because it's a change, it's something new. So this is the way that working metaphorically can like free someone up from a restrictive pattern around an obstacle they have. So I find it very, very important to all the coaching work we do. um, I remember working with a student at boot camp actually, and I wish it had been recorded because I happened just to be like in the practice room with these two people, and the student said that what she felt was that there was a part of herself that was like pulling her in one direction of fear, and then the other part of herself that had a lot of courage and wanted to help people, and these two parts were really in conflict. And I asked for a healing metaphor from her to help them unify. So, without doing a longer process, I just said, what could you imagine that would bring these two parts of yourself really together? How do you imagine that happening? I didn't even mention the word metaphor. And she said, oh, yeah, wow, that's weird. It's like a jacket, and I need to zip it up. And so then we went with that sensation of zipping the jacket up. Then we went back to talking about the two parts of herself and the career. But we spent a long time with that sensation of coming together with the zipper. Now the zipper was a metaphor for her that worked. She brought it out. It was her creative mind. And it was a metaphor that worked for unifying two parts of herself. So is this making more sense to you guys?
Yeah.
I'm hoping. Can we get some shares? And thank you so much, Heidi, for being present and sharing. Um, I like that. Softness reminds me of a cushion in my bank account. Yeah. The other funny thing, I don't know why I'm thinking about this, is that sometimes our shadows are really beneficial. So our fears, our anxieties, are actually they're beneficial for us in some way. And so sometimes we might find that there's an obstacle, like a fear or something, but it's really been serving us. And so we want to keep that service without feeling the negative side effects. So that can sometimes happen with obstacles. Like, I realized that often my fear around finances will kind of stimulate my creativity to do things professionally that I wouldn't do if I didn't have some insecurity around finances. And so when I realized that, I realized, okay, I want to have that stimulation without having the anxiety from it. So can I just imagine healthy fear? Like the fear I feel when I'm on, this might not sound healthy to you guys, but for me it is. I used to go running first thing in the morning at dawn, and I would go running on trails where I knew there were mountain lions. And I loved the kind of excitement of knowing I could be attacked by a mountain lion. And it was like something that I wondered about because I did it every morning when I lived in Oregon for many years in my 30s. And I often thought this is kind of weird. I enjoy running in these places where I know there's mountain lions. Um, but so I can bring back that, and I'm totally safe in my room. I'm not a runner anymore. um, I'm not in any danger from mountain lions, but I can bring that sense of excitement and uncertainty before I work on a creative project. So you see how I've kind of let go of the finances as being the stimulus to having that kind of positive side of fear, which is excitement. Um, okay. Any questions, team, before I go into the demo?
Yeah, Scylla is saying, so if there's a problem coming up, I make a metaphor of it, or how exactly do I start this strategy with a client? If the client brings up a metaphor, I can use it, but if not, I can ask my client to think of one, right?
Okay. I just had so many words come in that I wasn't really digesting. Can you say that again, Kara? I'm sorry.
Sure. So she's saying if there's a problem coming up, I can make a metaphor of it, is sort of part one. And then the first question there is,
Mhm.
how exactly do I start using this strategy? Using a metaphor that the client brings up,
Mhm.
but if the client doesn't bring one up, can I ask my client to think of one?
Yes, so there's lots of different ways. So a problem might be an actual real life problem, not an obstacle. So let's kind of break that apart first. Someone has a problem that like a situational problem in their life. It's really difficult to I don't know what it is. You guys want to throw out some situational problems. It's hard to care for myself and care for a family member that's ill. That could be a situational problem. Then we would want to get a little closer to what would it look like to care for yourself a certain part of the day? What would you need? What's preventing you from taking those actions? And as we learn that, we're getting closer to what the obstacle is the person has. Then we might look at what are the things they'd want to bring in and talk about those positive things metaphorically. If someone has a real life problem, like it's hard to organize myself, um, to create my business, let's say, it's hard to get organized. Say if organization, so then I might ask, and this is where we're pulling out the metaphor from the person. If organization were I don't know, I keep thinking about houses and rooms, but it could be if organization were an animal, what would that animal be? How would it look? And because organization is something difficult for them, organization might show up as a lion that's roaring, or maybe not. Maybe it won't show up like that. But we're going to keep working with whatever they give us to make it easier, more agreeable, more helpful, so it becomes their friend. So we're not adding to the metaphor negatively, but we're taking any negative metaphors and adding more helpful, like, qualities that give the client what their goal is. One of the more difficult sessions I've ever done was with a very skilled coach, and she wanted me to basically witness her work on herself. She wanted me there as like her helpful witness. And we were doing, it was a hypnosis session, and she went into her heart space and said it was like the bottom of the ocean, and her inner child was there who was lost and running away from her and terrified. And of course, I wanted to add it in and make it better. And I asked her if we could start like giving things to that little girl or playing a game. And she just said, "No, Magali, I just want you to be here with me at the bottom of the ocean, feeling the loss of this child." And I just said, okay. And I just stayed there with her, experiencing it with her, letting her share about it for like 20 minutes until it changed and she could play a game with that little girl. But that was really challenging for me. So there are clients, and I don't know why I'm sharing this, but there are clients that want to be witnessed for quite a long time in a difficulty or in a grief. And you can add any of the energy techniques or just presence, like just, okay, so how would it be if we just take some deep breaths now and just bring in a sense of safety, a sense of connection, a sense of grounding. So we are bringing in metaphors that are healing and nurturing so the person can feel safe enough to experience what might kind of be a difficulty or a shadow. That's also metaphor work. Yeah, and so often what I find the most transformative work is with fear or anger or jealousy or sadness, is bringing in our own mature presence and acceptance and techniques that soothe the client's nervous system, that bring tranquility in the witnessing, not making it bigger. So that's where I think there can be a real issue, is we don't want to over imagine a difficult emotion or obstacle and build it up. We accept it, we honor it, we're there with it, but then we're going to bring in healing to it. And that's really different than ignoring the shadow. We're bringing presence to it, but then we're bringing in what the client wants to bring in to have healing or change or transformation. So metaphor work is very transformative, sometimes very quickly. It can be used in little ways. In a session, someone says, I'm so nervous, feel like my teeth are going to fall out. And this is a real quote. And the coach says, let's gather up those teeth and put them back in your mouth. They've both just spoken metaphorically, and it's been helpful. I used to go to an osteopath that, as he was doing osteopathic work with my body, he would say things like, the shoulder today, your shoulder feels like a key lime pie. And I'd be like, what is he talking about? And he'd be like, just go with it. Key lime pie in your shoulder. And I'd be like, okay, key lime pie. All right. Oh, and yeah, there's like a graham cracker crust on my knee, and then we'd work with that crusty knee, whatever. But at first I thought, this is the weirdest doctor I've ever gone to. And then I learned he was also an Ericksonian hypnotherapist. So it went together really well. We actually developed a wonderful friendship. But at first I left that doctor's appointment going, that was the craziest doctor I've ever seen. I think he's off. Like I said to Mark, I think he's just insane. And then I learned really what he was doing. Took me a little while. So Okay, I have kind of gone off here. I want to bring us back to the strategy practice now.